Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 2 of Yu Yu Hakusho. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, obviously, we get it. This episode, half and half, follows Kurama, and then the other half follows Goki. It's not Gaki, Goki, who wasn't until the episode started he starts stealing the souls of children. I'm like, this does seem familiar, especially how that fight ends. I was like, yeah, I do feel like I distinctly remember that whole element, but we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, he's collecting kids' souls, and now they're all in a coma. Because at the same time, Yusuke's training to learn how to control his spirit energy to do this spirit gun. But I love like both Koinma and Botan are like chastising him. It's just being like, oh, I guess because you're so dumb. And he's like, being dumb has nothing to do with. He doesn't even fight being dumb. It's just like being dumb has nothing to do with why I can't do this. Because Koima's like, all right, like kind of pull the trigger with your heart and stop trying to pull the trigger with your hand. It's like you're kind of focusing too much on literally trying to do it all with your hand when you need to be kind of filling it with your heart as well. So we learn about the three demons. Obviously, the names just finally get dropped. It's Goki, Hiei, and Kurama. And so Yusuke can't use spirit energy, but he's hoping like, right, I'm a good enough fighter. I kind of whooped that other demon's ass last episode. To be fair, that spirit energy came in clutch at the end, removing it. But he has to go up against Goki, who's stealing souls, and him and Botan are walking all over the place, which I brought this up last episode. I think they're not going to do the whole her and a witch's broom situation. Maybe it wasn't a witch, but I could have sworn it was a witch's broom. She definitely like flew around. I feel like I distinctly remember it being a broom, but I don't remember. But it seems like she's just walking around with Yusuke. And Kuwabara kind of learns about all this. I love that Yusuke didn't even hide it. That's so interesting because he told Kuwabara straight up, because I'm like, yeah, what I would lie about this? It's like, you're definitely not telling your mom and Keiko about all of this, but I guess Kuwabara, you're finally like, yeah, like, he's an idiot, he's not going to believe me, but you also kind of got mad at him when he didn't believe you, because it's like, oh, like, what happened to you? It's like, yeah, I was fighting what happened? How'd you beat that guy? He didn't seem normal, right? He's like, yeah, because he was a yokai and I beat him with spiritual energy. Both times, like, what are you doing? Stop saying that stuff. And Kuwabara's like, hey, man, do you need some meds? Do you need some help? I love that. Like, Kuwabara actually seemed very... Once again, this is his rival. He doesn't hate Yusuke. They have a very love-hate relationship. But it's like, yo, buddy, are you okay? I need my rival in top shape. If you're not there mentally, like, that's not good. You need to get some help, homie. But he notices that he is able to see Botan. I don't remember Kuwabara's circumstances. Well, I mean, maybe like having a run-in with a yokai, like there was, I don't know if they're going to bother explaining that, because I feel like I remember Kuwabara's interaction with the, like, things of the supernatural variety is what awakened his sits to the the yokai and stuff. Like, it's his run-in with them that did that, so I think that's the same thing, but his buddies don't have that because they can't see Botan, even though they ran into that yokai last episode too. But I guess it's just more like it ignited a spark that was already there. Like, maybe it was always there in Kuwabara. I really don't remember like how deep we dive into Kuwabara's circumstances, of like if that's even like really relevant to the show. I don't remember it being a big deal. Like, the example I'm thinking of is like Bleach. Well, you find out later on in this series why Ichigo has like he's always been able to see spirits. He associated with his run-in with a hollow years ago that killed his mom, but you find out later on that there's more to Ichigo's circumstances than he was aware of. So I'm trying to remember if Kuwabara had a similar thing, but once again, there's a lot of the show I don't remember, so maybe that's relevant, maybe it's not. But just the fact is, out of anyone, he's the only one that did, like, is able to see Botan, because everyone else is kind of like, oh my god, are you... And they specifically said, are you seeing stuff again, implying like he might have had some connection with the yokai world even before now. So that might, like I said, that could be plot drops for like cool reveals about Kuwabara's circumstances later on. Because once again, some little bits I remember, I won't talk about it because they're massive spoilers, but I know there's certain things about Yusuke's circumstances that I'm like, I know what Yusuke's circumstances are, but I'm like, I'm trying to remember what instigated that reveal. Like, what I think it was a particular arc that revealed his circumstances. Like, he was pushed to a corner, and it's like, oh, this is what Yusuke's circumstances are. I'll leave it at that. If you know what Yusuke's thing is, you know what I'm talking about. Like I said, like, this is so early in the show, like, I'm not going to talk about it unless, like, they start hinting towards it. But that's what I'm trying to figure out about the Kuwabara of it all. Because he was super quick to believe it later on when it was like, wait, was he telling the truth about the yokai stuff? Like, maybe it's because like I said, maybe he's kind of had a similar Ichigo thing where, like, he's able to see stuff, like, he's always seen some stuff and people thought he was a little crazy. So now it's like, oh, if Yusuke's talking about that stuff, and apparently the guys didn't see that girl there that's dragging him away, because obviously he can see her. So maybe there's some truth to this. I love that he's just, like, following Yusuke around, like, later parts of the episode. But either way, Yusuke ends up tracking down Goki because Masuro, the little boy he saved in episode 1, it turns out there's kids, like, fainting in his neighborhood because their souls are being taken. So Yusuke goes after him. And I even love the whole thing where, like, he wanted to get noodles because it's like, yeah, I can't, like, fight on an empty stomach because I'm sure as hell going to die that way. And Botan's like, you idiot. But it's upsetting that he has logic. It's like, I mean, I guess there's logic behind that, but obviously, once again, it's shown in main protagonist thing of eating. Got to keep my strength up type of situation. But Yusuke ends up going up against the Goki. And once again, I love the choreography of this. I was like, dude. Like, because I don't remember, like, it being that. Once again, we're also talking about, like, a 90s anime. So, like, if it was, like, that's the thing. Like, if you probably, I mean, once again, I don't know what the action is like in the manga. But, like, you know, I mean, once again, we're talking about something that probably be stylized a little different. We're talking about something that was written over 30 years ago, animated almost just as long ago. So, like, obviously, they probably for live action purposes, they, like, stylized it. But like I said, maybe I'm just not remembering as well. But, like, I don't, because I remember bits and pieces. I think more specifically later fights, I remember how. But, like, I like the choreography for this, and just, like, the flipping and just twirling around. And it's like, yeah, you're going up against a demon with no spirit energy. I mean, you have spirit energy, but you're not utilizing it. Like, that's actually pretty dope how Yusuke handled that fight. And just, like, the moments of him just, like sliding into the cars and stuff and using the door. Like, it legitimately looks something like you'd see in a martial arts movie, and that's so wild to me. It kind of reminds me, once again, going back to other live action, it kind of reminds me of, like the more grounded elements of Zoro's fighting style. It kind of reminds me of that, which I think is so dope. But it's just this dope action sequence just playing out the way it does. But it's not like Yusuke got really motivated when Masuru's, like, soul was taken and it was about to get eaten. And it's just, I love that he, like, jumps up, stabs the thing, and, like, keeps the Goki's mouth open, and then the moment he points his finger, I was like, I feel like that memory in particular, I think I remember that in particular, Yusuke, like, maybe having a hard time, like, punching his way through the guy's so it's like, yeah, the best way to deal with you is to, like, literally take a spirit gun to your mouth. And just, like, that whole sequence. I also love the, like, stylistic way they represent it, because they swirl it. I don't think it ever swirled, because I always remember the spirit gun being just very, like, not, I guess, somewhat static, where it's just like, it's just a energy orb on the tip of his finger. Like, I don't remember, because it looks very Rasengan-ish, because I'm like, that looks like you'd use that same special effect for a live action Rasengan. That's what it just aesthetically reminded me of. But I was like, also, they never talked about this episode. I'm curious, will they bring it up in the next episode or not? Yusuke's limited on how many spirit guns he can fire in a day. At this point in the series, it's only one. So that ends up being an issue for early fights, because he's like, cool, I burnt it already. I have to wait 24 hours before he can, like, fire another one. Obviously, as the show progresses, he can fire more in a single day, but it's limited, because, like, it uses up a lot of spirit energy, and the more he fires, the more he's burning up his energy. So at this point, he can only fire one. They didn't set those stipulations up yet, but that could be something we do in the next episode. did think it was interesting that Kurama was there watching. I guess he was like, all right, so you're after us, so I want to get a first-hand look at who is the person that's after us. And he saw, I think, Yusuke's character. And so, luckily, the orb was dealt with. I should also correct the last episode, I called it a sphere. Like, as in, like, a round object sphere, 3D, like, circle spear situation. But it kind of sounded like, not listening back to audio, it sounded like I said spear, like a pole arm lance type of spear. That's what it sounded like. I should have just said the word orb, because that's the word they use. But, yeah, got that. I was like, once again, I guess I misremember, because I was like, I could have sworn I remember Kurama getting the other item too, but no, Yusuke ended up collecting it and giving it back. Obviously, they put that back on under lock and key. And we learn about Kurama's circumstances. Yusuke follows him to the hospital, and we learn... Because at first I was like, he's not half yokai. I was like, was that Kurama's circumstances? And I'm like, I know it's someone else's circumstances. No, once again, no spoilers. I know that's another person's thing. But I was like, was that his thing? Because I knew he had like a human mom. Because I remembered his mom being the reason why he did what he was doing. I also did not, it wasn't until like we were partway in the episode before they even said it, I was like, oh right, it was a mirror that he took, right? I didn't remember the object being, well, because those are three, because I know those are three Japanese mystical items, like in, God, is it in Shinto mythology? Like, there are three sacred items, a sword, I guess a sword, a mirror, and a spear? Or an orb? I could have sworn it was something else. But I think it's like a mythology thing. Or maybe it's just part of the Shinto belief in general. Maybe it's not necessarily like Japanese mythology. I think it's Japanese mythology. I don't think it's specifically connected to Shinto Buddhism. Maybe it is, but like there are three sacred items, and these are the three dangerous items. But I'm like, I think that pulls from like Japanese mythology, those three particular items. But either way, Kurama wants to use the mirror to grant a wish. He's like, yeah, the moment I make a wish that my mom's okay, that's all I need. So I will return the mirror after the fact. Once again, showing you the good guy Kurama is. We learn a little bit of like, right, I was injured running from a pursuer, and to regain my strength, I entered a fertilized human egg, and I was just going to stick around long enough until my energy recovered, but, you know, he got attached to his mom and being here. Because there's a whole conversation with Botan about, because the human world and the demon world are so separated, I mean, who knows when that boundary went up? You'd assume it's been a very, very long time. But more of the most powerful demons tend to not be here. But that's why I'm also trying to remember. It's like, but then how I guess maybe they're on the like weaker side, especially Kurama because he was injured. But it's like, we also see Toguro later on. So how did a lot of them get to the human world? That's the question. Well, because I forgot, that's also why Yusuke asked Botan. He was like, how did that like roundworm get here? And she was like, I don't know, but that's your job to figure out. It's like, I love that back and forth of like the dynamic. I love that we do lean into that a little bit this episode too, of just like that, like her calling him an idiot and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you know, Botan doesn't have all the answers herself, but it's like, yeah, that's your job. You're the spirit detective and everything. Because I don't remember how they are getting into this world. Because the boundary's supposed to keep a lot of demons. Because there's not that many yokai that are actually on Earth in the human world right now. But it's like how the few that are here slip through. But, obviously Yusuke's got this, he feels conflicted because it's like, right, Kurama's a yokai, and the yokai he's dealt with so far, the two he's come across, have been bad guys, and now he finds out, like, not only do you have a human mom, you actually care about her, and you just want her to be okay. So he even has this conversation with Keiko about, like, right, or how do you know, like, bad guys are really just bad guys? And she talks about Yusuke, for example. Most people misunderstand him, treat him like a rebel, delinquent, troublemaker, but it's like, no, I know you're a good person. And she's like, so for me, even if someone says someone's a bad person, if I judge them and determine that they're a good person, they're a good person to me. Just like if there's a person that's being like lauded as being a good person, if I think they're a jerk, they're a jerk. Just kind of leaning into the multifacety of people aren't necessarily defined how a lot of people see them. It kind of comes down to a personal thing. And even then, like, people will have their preconceived notions, because Yusuke came into it with this preconceived notions. I even love when Botan was hearing Kurama's story. She's like, oh my god, that's so sweet. Kurama wants to help his mom. But obviously there's the downside to the mirror. It takes away the life of the person who takes the life of the person who makes the wish. But for Kurama, it's like he probably already knew that, because it's like, I don't care as long as my mom's okay. I don't care what happens to me. And Kuwabara follows Yusuke and tries to stop him, because it's like, yo, this guy's a bad guy. Because the sad thing is, like, Kuwabara feels responsible. It's like, because I went looking for that fight against that guy, like, I failed you guys as your leader, you got hurt. Because later on he went to the hospital and he saw his buddy, because his buddy's like, no, I'm good, I'm great, I'm okay, I'm fine. But he had apologized to all of them earlier, and he came back to the hospital and he saw, I think, like, for the burn to heal, they have to like peel off like the skin, like, because it starts scabbing up. I think you have to peel off the skin so that it, like, the burns, like, you have to peel it off so that the wound actually can heal. I could be mistaken, but I think that's how that whole thing works. And Kuwabara just saw that massive burn on his back. It's like, I failed you and I'm sorry. So that's why later on it's like, yo, these yokai, like, let them die or whatever. You don't owe him anything. They're bad guys. And so he tried to stop Yusuke. But then Yusuke went to help Kurama. And I love that moment. And it's this beautiful moment of just like, right, have you seen your mom cry over you? He's like, that's the worst thing in the world. Like, if you die, your mom, like, no matter how long her life is going to be sad about it. So don't make her cry. He knows firsthand what that's like, hurting your mom in that way. So it's like, right, he gave half of his life to the mirror, which I did not remember that story beat at all. I was like, that's because I felt like I remember. I was like, there's no way he destroys the mirror, does he? But it's like, no, he offered half of his life, and so did Kurama, and they were able to save his mom. And he makes the promise, I'll never leave your side. And for Kuwabara, he's like, I'm sorry, you were right. And it's like, he saw how caring, like, Kurama is towards his mom. It's like, oh wow, like, I guess I shouldn't lump them all. I mean, because they're lumped in that delinquent area, so they know what it's like to kind of be a little misunderstood. They're both good guys. And Yusuke being like, all right, come on. I didn't get to eat my ramen earlier, so you're going to buy me one. Kuwabara's like, yeah, sure. So I'm like, oh, I love that love-hate relationship these two knuckleheads have. I brought it up last episode, but looking at his hair even more this episode, once again, it's not as pompadourish. Once again, I feel like I'm because when I think of Kuwabara from the anime, like, a part of my brain just once again thinks of Mondo from Danganronpa. So like, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was fairly pompadourish, because I feel like that was my first introduction to pompadour, like, from the more anime front, was Kuwabara, but it's definitely not, like, I guess it's supposed to be kind of like strawberry blonde. Maybe to some extent, like, maybe like in certain lighting it looks like it could be reddish. It looks very blondish, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the way his hair blends together that it is red, but it has like a tinge of red to it, but it comes off very strawberry blondish. Maybe that's, but it definitely looks more blonde in some light and kind of looks like a light red in some others. But maybe that's just me reading too much into it. But either way. So, 2 items down, 1 to go. I guess it makes sense that we wouldn't get through the Hiei stuff as well in this episode. But we see his circumstances. He uses the knife to create the third eye, and he's using that to track the tears of ice. It wasn't until we met the guy in pink suit who's using that yokai to cry tears of, to sell them. And I was like, wait, is she who I think she's... I was like, once again, it's like seeing the episode, I'm like, oh, I was like, wait, is that Hiei's motivation? Like, I attribute it to, like, oh, Hiei had, like, all about power and stuff. Not unless that happened like after the fact. Not unless they're blending both storylines. Because I could have sworn Hiei's circumstances was him just all about power, but maybe it's like he needed power for what he's trying to do, and ultimately he ends up losing control, and that's when Yusuke and them have to step in to kind of help. Or not unless they're changing it to make it so like everything he's doing he has. Because I was like, I do vaguely feel like I remember. It wasn't until this episode I was like, wait, is that his motivation for all of this? If I'm not mistaken, it could be. I'm pretty certain that's his sister, right? The demon the yokai that cries tears. I'm like, I feel like she doesn't pop up that often, does she? I don't remember. I don't remember. Like I said, it seems so familiar the moment she starts crying tears of that they like start selling. I was like, that seems familiar. And then Hiei later on tracking, I was like, right, she is your family, like I thought she was. So, like I said, I believe that's his sister, if I'm not mistaken. So, it's like, oh, I guess Hiei has a lot more of a pure motivation than I remember. I'm like I said, either that's a thing of like, no, he lost control and that's where Yusuke and the others have to step in, or they're combining the two stories. Like, what? I feel like I remember those being two separate things. Him being all about power, sure, but then like the whole sister thing being a thing after the fact. So maybe they're expediting that storyline and kind of blending it together, or maybe it always was that and I'm just being once again stupid again. I have no idea. So it seems like amongst the trio, the only like the only real bad guy seems to be Goki. He seems to be the only like truly piece of shit amongst the group. But Hiei ends up slashing a car in half trying to track, because he was tracking it probably thinking it was his actual sister, but but it ended up not being. It just ended up being one of her tears. So he probably has to check all over town because like it probably registers the same as her. It reads off like her spiritual energy. And spiritual energy signature is the same, so he probably has to go around all these different spots until he narrows it down to where she was. Or maybe it's just kind of a thing of, no, I'm going after anything that was taken from my sister to kind of pay you back. Like, so I'm not just going to rescue her, I'm also going to find every tear of hers and take it from you just to kind of prove a point. So Home Dude tries to get out of all of this because he's like, Sakyo, like, you've brought too much trouble my way. I want back the sinkhole. But it's like, no. We can reach a new arrangement. Come meet me personally. And he has Toguro show up. So I guess it's like, right, you're here to help deal with Hiei when he shows up. You're the muscle. I'm like, I don't think he's trying to kill a Home Dude in a pink suit just to get my picture. I'm thinking it's like Toguro's going to work for him. Toguro's going to work for him to get rid of I forgot Home Dude on, like, I remember it clicked in my head the moment I saw him on Toguro's shoulder, but I was like, I don't even remember Home Dude's name, the little guy on his shoulder. Some very, very interesting developments. I'm ultimately curious to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. It's always funny to say that, where it's like, yeah, I might not remember everything, but I generally know where somewhat know what the next story beat is. So for this particular situation, it's weird to kind of say that in a situation like I don't know, where I have like, where it doesn't seem like, where at least I have some idea of where things are going to go. So I'd assume Hiei is only going to be half the episode, and maybe the other half would revolve around taking down Toguro. Maybe, like I said, this Sakyo dude, I'm like, I feel like I remember that, but I also feel like I don't remember where that story beat goes. If that can't just be out of nowhere. That probably is straight from the manga or anime, and I just don't remember. Either way, we'll see where it all takes us. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.